Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon when you're listening. It's Winton Churchill with the Barefoot Consultants, and today we're going to be talking about 7 ways to answer the question, what can I possibly do as an online freelancer? This is something that we, probably the number one question that we're asked when we go to live events or now doing our virtual events. So lots of good things to say about that. That's a question we're used to answering. A lot of times, particularly baby boomers and now those over 50 that are looking at this kind of stuff say, what can I possibly do? I was a marketing manager. I'm a dentist. How can I possibly figure out how to work online? And so that's a question we're used to answering a lot. And today we're going to go through some ideas, some places to look in your history, in your background, in the things that you've done over the years to help you flesh out that sense of what you can possibly do online. Let's see here. I'm getting somebody's trying to log in and I'm getting a message. So let me see if I can figure that out. Let's see. Okay. It looks like everything's up and running. So, they'll need to come through on that link, which they can click on. Let me just see if I can try now. Here we go. There we go. All right. Very good. Just answered a couple emails there or messages. Okay, so the first thing we want to, I guess the overarching concept of this and where most people struggle with this question of what can I possibly do online is they have this giant piece of a granite boulder sitting in front of them called their career. And they think in terms of their occupation. Most people say, well, my occupation is this, and so that's what I'm, used to doing. So that's the mindset. And so what we know is the best thing to do is help them, slice up that giant boulder into the individual components of their life and their career to come up with what they can do online. So let's take before I get into the 7 specific ways, let's take somebody who is a marketing manager in a company, and that may be an occupation that you don't relate to at all, but you'll get the general idea from this. In that occupation, they did things like they made spreadsheets because they planned marketing campaigns. They did things like they probably wrote copy from time to time, or they wrote emails to clients from time to time or customers, that tell them about certain events, certain products, certain services that are coming up. And so they did, sort of microscopic things. They created PowerPoint presentations every time they launched a new product that they shared with their team of salespeople, or they may have made one both for their salespeople to train them on their product or service, and then they made one for the client or the customer or the prospect so they could get an idea of what that's all about as well. So there's this idea of taking this giant boulder called my occupation and slicing it in a lot of ways over time, but in other ways over parts of your life, because we're not just our job. A part of us is our job today and what we do in our job today, and that's something we want to take into consideration. But the first place to look after you have kind of broken this up into your your segments is past jobs that you've had. And just by example, in my past, sometimes 35, 40 years ago, I worked for a grocery store for a number of summers. So I understand a lot about how a small retail grocery store works. So although I don't have extremely current knowledge, there are, newsletters that local grocery stores put out that I could proofread, and I have enough of an understanding about how a grocery store works and how things work. And I certainly could ask the client if I had questions, but I have a lot more experience, even though it's 40 years old, with grocery stores than somebody that knows nothing about grocery stores is going to Google it. I had another set of experience and knowledge gain when I worked for the company called Ryder Systems. And, most of us know Ryder is the truck rental company. When you want to move, they have what's called a one-way division. And those are the yellow trucks you see in the highway. And people pack those with stuff and, drive from some place to another place. And so there's a lot of that going on. And so in that job that I did for, I don't know, the better part of 3.5 years, I think, when I was in my early 20s, I learned a lot about trucking and reservations and moving and that kind of stuff that still serves me to this day, because it's funny. I wound up talking to a lot of people about how to move abroad and that kind of thing. And a lot of the stuff that I learned back then, I can still bring into the conversation. So that is what we would call a domain of knowledge. And so generally people don't want to hire the best proofreader online. They want to hire a good proofreader, for example, that knows a little something about the field that they're proofing on, or that kind of thing. So this is a very important concept. You have to marry these two things. If you go on to an online network and say, hey, I'm a great proofreader, great. We've got 1 million great proofreaders on this network. How are you going to distinguish yourself? When you read a job, though, or when I would read a job that says, we need a proofreader that knows something about, moving companies or the process of making a move or that kind of thing, that would be something where I would be a good fit. And I would bring into that proposal the fact that I worked for Ryder Systems in their one-way division, which was largely people renting trucks to move. So that's the first area to look beyond your career, is into your, it's part of your career, but it's in the past jobs that you've done. And so the next part to look in, and we've touched on this now, is the idea of jobs that you've done in other industries. You have experience for that. I had, worked for 3 years as a freelance rock and roll photographer in my late teens and early 20s. So I understand a lot about photography. And back then it was all dark room, and a lot about shooting with available light and, just the light that you have on the stage or in the room that you're in with a rock and roll personality or something like that. And so all that idea of bringing, capturing portraits and capturing people in natural, basically when they're unaware of the camera, which is an art, that is, and a science. Good photographers learn how to catch people with natural expressions when they're not aware of the camera. So that's a skill that I bring to this. And as I go through an online network and I look for portrait photography or photography, that's where I'm going to see those jobs that I can do. And maybe it's not the job of photographing somebody like it used to be. Maybe it's the job of helping a new photographer to this field understand how to do that. And with an hour or two of conversation over Zoom and showing them some examples from pictures I took long ago and last month, I can illustrate the points and the ways that you do this, and they can potentially dramatically improve their photography business by doing that. So item number three that we want to talk about is volunteer work that you've ever done. And I've talked to people and they say, gee, I don't think I can do anything online. I work in this occupation. And then I say, well, tell me about your volunteer work. Oh, volunteer work. Well, I work with the United Way every year on their campaign, and I'm pretty active in my church with the building fund. We promote that through the newsletter there. So I'm hearing all kinds of things coming off that. They're active in fundraising, which is a specific skill on these networks. If you're working on the building fund, you have some skills in that. If you're publishing things in the church newsletter, you may have the ability to write articles. That's one step. You may have the ability to proofread articles. You may have the ability to lay out an electronic version of the newsletter. That's another possible thing you can do. So lots of things that you can do that just, when I talk to somebody, they've kind of discounted that. They've said, this is not really, I don't see how I can do anything. And you say, what about your volunteer work? And I mean, it lights up the screen. They've got lots of experience from that volunteer work. And so that is very important to look at. And your volunteer work might span into a charity, which is item number 3 on our list today, or it might span into something like your church or spiritual group that you're associated with, that kind of thing. So in the online world, those are very popular topics. People need, proofreaders, writers, PowerPoint makers in those areas. And you would be surprised. I worked with somebody recently that said their background was pretty much in Christian music, but they had no idea how they would somehow apply that in this world. And so we just use the adjective Christian, the modifier, and we looked at many, many jobs in the Upwork system and one other system that we took a look at where they are looking for people specifically coming from a Christian background. So that's how you turn that into something. Now, another area that could sort of overlap as a volunteer area, but into your interest. We want to explore your interest, and I will talk to somebody and say, well, I really enjoy camping. My husband and I go camping half a dozen times a year for a week to 3 weeks at a time. And we just love the heck out of that. And we've been doing that for 25 years. And somebody like that knows an awful lot about camping. I mean, it's they have deep, deep knowledge. This is one of those domains of knowledge that we talk about. And so, again, for somebody that is hiring a proofreader, I mean, you put on your hat as a hirer of freelance buyers, and you're going to say, gee, do I want to talk? Do I want somebody to do my proofreading that understands what a mess kit is and understands what a tent pole is and understands what a pitching a tent means and all that kind of stuff? That's the person that's really going to light up that freelance buyer rather than somebody that lives in a foreign country, somebody whose language skills may not understand idioms that we would particularly use communicating in English and that sort of thing. So that's something to think about. Do you have an interest? Do you enjoy camping? Do you go to drag racing shows? Are you interested in organic gardening and go to workshops on organic gardening? These all represent domains of knowledge. And yes, you may have made 1,000 PowerPoint presentations as the marketing manager in a 30-year career with a company. But now what you want to do different is you want to take your skill and strategy and tips and tactics and all that good stuff you learned over the years, moving ideas forward in your job through PowerPoint, and take that and apply it to a completely different topic like organic gardening or back to camping or something along those lines. So, what interests do you have? Do you go to air shows when it comes to town? Do you like to go down to the harbor and look at boats, and know something about boats and harbors? And fishing is another very popular area for online articles and websites and that kind of thing. So the next category number 6, we're going to take a look at is collecting. Do you enjoy collecting things? What kind of things do you enjoy today, or have you enjoyed in the past in terms of collecting things? And many of us did coin collecting, stamp collecting, butterfly collecting. I mean, there's lots of experience that you may have in building a collection. Maybe from your work, you have a superpower in how to build a work library. That would be something that would be useful for somebody. How do you identify, the set of reference material that you're going to use for doing a job or accomplishing a task? How many people would welcome help in setting up their work environment so they have those kind of insights as to how to set up your information bank? And now there's a way to be lazy about it. We use Google every day, and you can look up things. But when you really want to when you work in a certain area, there's certain text and certain reference material that you want to collect and have available for easy reference. And so that's a great way. If somebody was a coin collector, there's half a dozen websites, documents, manuals, tools you can use on Amazon for examining coins and that kind of thing. And so all that stuff becomes part of your value in the online world. And again, you may have never made a presentation about coins, but you may have made 1,000 of them about the product or services that the company you work for offered. And it's all about taking the skill and unhooking it from the company and hooking it back up to this. In fact, that was something when I left Oracle, a wonderful company, the world's second largest software company, databases around the world. Had a lot of fun there, a lot of great memories of the people I worked with. And after a 35-year career in technology, I was ready not to explain anything about a piece of technology ever again. And I thought I never wanted to make another PowerPoint presentation. And about 6 months after I semi-retired and moved to Mexico, I realized that it wasn't the PowerPoint that I wasn't so crazy about. It was explaining how what's called a two-phase commit works in a database, or database resiliency, or I had slide decks upon slide decks that talked about all these things, and I was just kind of burnt out on doing that stuff. But I wasn't burnt out on the fun of taking a new idea, say around freelancing or whatever it might be, and explaining it that now in a PowerPoint presentation. And so just to hit on another potential hobby, and just to put a fine point on it, there are hobbies like photography. Let's say you're an avid photographer, and there are not a lot of jobs online for photographers actually shooting weddings or shooting different things of one kind or another. But if you're a photographer anytime in the last 10 years, you've learned how to use maybe Photoshop, maybe Lightroom, to color correct, to retouch your photos, to crop your photos. And there's a million other software that freelance buyers look for. Number one, people that know how to use that software. So that's a good thing. But that software in the hands of somebody that understands photography and composition and lighting and that kind of thing is very powerful. So being able to work in that kind of environment is fabulous. And so that's what we're looking for in terms of what software, just from an interest standpoint, have you that is there that you may have picked up along the way and learned that. A piece of software that you don't use necessarily in your work at all, but a piece of software that's a little complicated, took you time to learn. And that's a great way to get started on these job and project networks, is doing simple jobs like, you'll see jobs like, I shot 100 photos. I need them all cropped and color corrected, and I need it within 3 days. If you know how to use Lightroom, that's a walk in the park. That's an easy job. And it's a job that really exhibits a skill if you understand a little bit about photography and a little bit about composition and a little bit about lighting and a little bit about tonality and that kind of thing. This is something you can absolutely go to work on and make happen. So that covers what I wanted to present today. I would welcome any comments you might have about something that you have seen or heard today that may have triggered an idea about something that you've done in your past. And I see a couple people on here, and I know that one person certainly is just now coming out of a career that has a lot to do with administration and project management. But in a previous life, they knew a lot about seeds and creating hybrid seeds and growing things. And so that's a great example. They had that experience and had that training and had that education decades ago, but it's still, their knowledge base is still there. They're very well qualified to counsel people on these topics and bring that into their freelancing. So what do you have that makes you that you may have learned or thought of that might be something that you have what we would call a domain of knowledge? I was talking to somebody recently that coached a little league team 10 years ago. And I said, but in doing that, all the rules about, what age groups can do certain things, what things lead to injuries, how you train new kids when they're coming into baseball, that kind of thing. And just quickly here, I like to pause and say, if you do enjoy what you're hearing today, there are lots of good people that this will be shared with if you hit like. And yes, we got a good question here. Are there many photo jobs on Upwork? And I'm gonna just quickly dive into to Upwork right here, and we'll see, today what's in there. Let me just get this ready to share. Second. Photography assignments. And so we'll take a look at this. This is very interesting. And let me get to into my StreamYard here so I can share this screen. And we're going to share a we're going to look for a particular Chrome tab, and we're going to take a look at this one. So when I type the word photography into my search for work area, what I'm seeing is there's these are keywords that are in the system. There's photo editing, there's editing, there's photo retouching, there's using Adobe Photoshop in photography. There is product photography, and this is one that we've had a number of people in our program where companies will send products to you to be photographed, because usually that's something that you have to have some what we call a light box or something like that. And if you have that, photography jobs. There's food photography. That's something that in a lot of cases that's location dependent. But if you see a food photography assignment on Upwork, not a lot of them, but some of them in your local area, that could be a great fit. Not all jobs necessarily on Upwork, although the overwhelming majority are remote jobs that you can do from anywhere, but there's the occasional poster on here. Digital photography. A lot of people have questions about how to use their equipment, need help. There's wedding photography. So this might be shooting wedding photography, and it might be using Lightroom to touch up wedding photography. And of course, one of the biggest categories online is real estate photography. So we see a lot of things like that. So if we just press the button, we know that photography is a key word, and we're going to look across. We're going to turn off the US filter, and we're going to look for jobs that mention photography. So there's 2,700 jobs on there today for photography. Now, most of those you won't want to do. You'll want to begin narrowing this down, because you can't possibly look at that many jobs. So you might come in here and narrow it down to photo editing. And of course, the words come off my lips, and we only narrowed it down by that amount. But let's go over here and on the left column here where we're filtering by, and take a look at this. So we're looking at photography jobs, and we're looking for jobs. Now this is interesting, where the number of freelancers needed. Here they have big projects. There's most projects over 2,000 only need one photographer, but many need multiple photographers, and 2 to 5 photographers, and some need more than 5. You can see here the experience level. They're looking at 236 of these assignments are entry level. 1,300 are intermediate. 553 are expert level. You can find jobs at different rates. These are fixed price jobs. And let's say you've been working online for a while and you don't want to do a job for less than $100. So you might come in here and pick this job range. So you're going to see 385 jobs in there that can help you, that you can advance on. Now, we talk about the Pareto principle a lot. And as you look at these 385 jobs, you're probably going to see about 20% of those that are in the ballpark of something that you can do. And within those 20%, so you're going to be looking at roughly 70 jobs, and you're going to further pare those down to the ones that are just right for you. It might be the software you know how to use, might be the photography style you like to take, that kind of thing. So lots of good opportunity coming here in this particular. Here's somebody looking to 4 to 5 product shots on a white background, and it describes what the subject matter is. And that's a estimated budget $250. So in that particular thing, the client would send you the stuff. If you have a studio set up, like I used to have many years ago, doing a job like this would probably take about an hour. You'd bring it in, you'd light it, you'd set it up, you'd take a few different shots from a few different angles, a little different lighting. You'd probably send 100 pictures back to the client and let them pick the ones they like, and boom, there you go. Now here's another one, somebody cropping 800 images. And if you've used Lightroom, or even if you use Google, there's Google Photos is great for doing this kind of work. And if you understand how to use Google Photos, here is a specific assignment on a date, and they're working with a charity partner in Hackney. I'm sure this is something you'd obviously want to figure out where that is and what it is and that kind of thing. So a little bit of work to do there, but $400 estimated budget. So grab your camera and go out. And if you live in Hackney, that's a place to go. So you can see here's another video shoot for the evening in Dubai. There's jobs that we can come up and select client locations. So you could limit this to, say, United States jobs. There we go. United States. Then you make sure you don't have to squeeze a ticket to Dubai in there. But if you had a lot of airline points and you've always wanted to go to Dubai, that also might be a great opportunity for you. So lots of different jobs on there, and somehow I hit a selection that didn't seem to. Let me see if we can select that. Not happening. I don't know. Something's glitchy. This is one of the reasons that I'm not crazy about doing live presentations like this, because there's a lot of stuff going on in your computer when you're streaming live, and sometimes it glitches things up. But let's go back to our live shot, and we'll do that. And I see Captain Kellen is on. Good to see you today, Kellen. Great to have you on our Facebook Friday. Very good. Looking for any questions that anybody might have in this area. We've got a lot of people online. That's great. Again, if you find this information valuable, help us share it with other baby boomers that are considering freelancing by liking and subscribing. If you're viewing this on YouTube, we're actually broadcasting to our private Facebook group right now, our public Facebook group right now, and also to YouTube. So we have lots of folks, and by this time next week, we'll have 200 or 300 people that will have seen what we've talked about today. So always helpful if you can pop up a thought here in terms of a question. And there's Bob Herb coming in from Roatan. And Bob, if take a look at some of his photographs. Bob leads diving and photography expeditions in Roatan, and I think they're opening back up now. I think things are loosening up, as we say, and I've seen some beautiful shots on Bob's Facebook page. So just encourage you to take a look at that. Great example. Bob and I worked together at Sun Microsystems 25, 30 years ago. And, we ran into each other at an international living conference. He's doing nothing like what we were doing before, and I'm doing nothing like what we were doing before. And a great example of boomers, in some cases, taking some lemons and turning them into lemonade. So just know that. And we have one of our coaches coming in, Doug Tiffany from Hawaii. And Doug helps people sort of crack the granite boulder that we talked about. Doug's uh, walks people through, an extended version of this process that we just did today, and helps them uncover what their skills are, what their talents, what their domains of knowledge. A lot of times in 20 minutes, we can come up with a pretty good list. But if we can spend an hour with somebody or a couple hours, we can come up with a really cool list. And then, in my mind, baby boomers working online is all about people getting work that they enjoy doing. We're going to be doing this freelance work for the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, whatever it might be. And find something you have fun with. Find something you're interested in. Find something that makes you want to jump out of bed in the morning and get right to it. Lots of new things to do, lots of new things to solve, lots of new ways to deliver satisfaction to a client. And that whole idea of delivering satisfaction is something that is so important. I had a conversation with one of our members recently. I've talked about this, and they came into one of our programs because they were living abroad. They were sort of living the perfect life. They had figured out how to earn an income from where they were, but they were trading stocks and currencies and different things like that. And I asked them, why did you come into our program? And they said, because at the end of the day, even though I'm making reasonable money doing the stocks and the commodities and the currency and that kind of thing, every day at the end of the day, when I shut off my computer, I'm in a knot, and I'm wondering what the market open is going to do in the morning. I'm wondering what the Asian markets are doing overnight. I'm worried about the wheat crop in the Midwest. I'm worried about the monsoon season in India. And I'm in a knot. And I'm in a knot from the time I go to bed to the time I wake up. And when I log in, I'm hoping good things are happening, but I know I'm going to see a lot of negative things that are happening. And I'm going to have to read through those negative things, because that helps me understand how to make money. But how cool would it be if I didn't have to drink, a jug of negative juice every morning at, 4 or 5 a.m. when they get up and they start looking at markets and reading the tickers and the news things. I want to help people. I want people to smile. I want people to thank me for what I've done for them at the end of the day. And that's really one of the hidden payments that every good freelancer receives, is as people get to know you, they appreciate your skill set. They learn to do what you're teaching them how to do in some respects. A lot of people kind of go to school on their freelancers. You're bringing a bag of new tricks to them that they don't understand in some cases at all. And, it's great to have that feeling of help somebody down the road. So very good way to enjoy your days ahead and have quiet, relaxing evenings, knowing that you help somebody today and you're going to help somebody tomorrow. That's always good stuff. You're not having to do things that stress you out. And that's, again, you would think that most people would get that, but they don't necessarily get that. So that's what that's what we're faced with. So I want to thank you for the good questions today. I want to thank all the people who are now watching this in playback form. We do monitor the chat, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have. So just dive in there and use the chat window, and we'll answer those questions. And we look forward, if you're in one of our programs, to seeing you on Tuesday night for our Tuesday night freelance call, or for our Wednesday night programs about teaching English and around the world. And don't be a stranger. So if we don't see you before next week, we'll see you on our Facebook pages. We'll see you in our chat rooms and on our website at barefootconsultants.com. So have a great week freelancing. Enjoy your weekend. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Take care. Adios and aloha.